Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss the topic constitutional morality for in India. So, the first of all, we'll understand the what is constitutional morality. So, it is defined basically that it is paramount reference to the forms of the constitutions. Constitution. So, what is that paramount reference? Reference with respect, right? And supreme respect for the forms of the constitutions. What are the forms of the constitution? Forms of the constitutions are the institutions and the values enshrined in it. So, if this that constitutional morality basically demands the people reverence or paramount reverence of the people towards the constitutional values which are enshrined in the constitution as well as the institutions which has been created by the constitution. So this is the meaning of constitutional morality. The idea of constitutional morality was basically given by the George Grote, right? He was a British nationalist, British historian who was given the concept of constitutional morality, and he defines it as a balance between the freedom and the restraint. What is that freedom and the restraint? It is a kind of where the citizens basically upholds the constitutional values as well as that is their that is their respecting the constitutional authorities while retaining the rights to openly critique those in power. So this idea basically introduced by the that concept of constitutional morality was given by George Grote, who has basically said that it is a balance between the freedom and the restraint. So this is also there. You can also define the constitutional morality as adherence to the constitution, not just in letter but in spirit. That if we are having the constitution, as we know that the constitution forms the supreme law of the land, so it must be revered, it must be respected, it must be observed, it must be adhered. So this is the idea of the constitutional morality. Now, before now we'll understand that what are the pillars of the constitutional morality. So we have the constitutional values and rights. So what are the where you can see the constitutional values are very much reflected in the uh, various provisions of the constitution. If we talk about the Indian constitution, so we have the preamble, and you already know if you can recall the very objectives and nature of the constitution which has been enshrined in the preamble, listed in the preamble. So that shows that enormous values, the constitutional value like liberty, equality, justice, right? Justice, we talk about the social, economic, political justice. We protect, if we talk about the liberty, so liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. So these values, fraternity is there, unity and integrity is there. All these constitutional values which are embedded in the constitution must be adhered and respected, right? So this is their idea. So first thing is this one, and second thing is that rule of law and accountability. Rule of law, rule of law and accountability. What does it mean? If we talk, if we have the this kind of provision like rule of law. Rule of law means everyone is treated equally before the law. So if certain laws is there which is applicable to the citizens, must be also applicable to the bureaucrats and those in the power. You can see that there are many politicians, they are undergoing several criminal charges. Why? Because the law is fair. Law basically equally applicable to the both those in the authority, both those who are in authority as well as the common citizens. So this is the idea of rule of law. Another thing is that accountability. We know that authorities, various authorities has been created by the constitution, and they have been given certain provisions of powers, right? Powers of provisions. So these powers must be exercised responsibly. Suppose we have the district magistrate, right? So it has been the office of the district magistrate. So district magistrates are basically they are have been the part of the constitution. They are basically they are having created by the constitution. So they are responsible for protecting the rights of the citizens as well as they are basically responsible to the citizens as well. How? Because you can see they are discharging functions which must be constitutionally significant, right? And another thing you can see that we have the prime ministers, executives are there, and council of ministers. So they are also responsible to some higher authorities. So in a way, this idea of rule of law and accountability is very much important, and it shows the constitutional morality. Now coming to the ethical and transparent governance. So we know that promoting integrity, responsibility, and transparency in the public affairs. So another aspect of the constitutional morality is that bringing transparency in the governance. For instance, we can see we have the digital media platforms or digital India platforms where the government is basically listing various policies and decisions and taking the feedbacks from the people, and based on those data it is making certain changes in the laws and decisions. For instance, we can see we have the mygovernment.in. So if you go on that site, so you can basically give the opinions, and through that platform government is communicating with the citizens. Another way of transparency in governance is the right to information. So right to information is also significant because it has ensured that all the government decisions are way by the citizens' rights. So this is there. Now coming to the judiciary role in applying constitutional morality to advance social reform in India. So the idea that the constitutional morality, so what are those morality? As I have already told you, that in the very preamble, that is first page of the first introduction of the preamble, for introduction of the constitution, that is preamble, lists various constitutional moral values, which are moral values like liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, right? So all these things are already there, and we can see that the preamble as well as various provisions in different parts of the constitution are guiding the judiciary to ensure that constitutional morality is upheld. So we'll see that how this constitutional morality has been upheld by the Supreme Court or Supreme Court in the various judgments. For instance, we have the K.S. Puttaswamy case, which is related to the right to privacy, and it has been said that right to privacy has become the fundamental right. So this one is there. Another thing, we have the preservation of constitutional values. So we have the Kiswan and Bharti case, wherein Supreme Court has said that the fundamental structure of the constitution cannot be altered altogether. So this idea basically given rise to basic the concept of basic structure doctrine. And you should note that the idea of basic structure doctrine is not comprehensive. That is, its meaning is not defined, or the provisions have not been listed at what form the basic structure doctrine. And so the Supreme Court in the various judgments comes up with the defining what forms the basic structure doctrines. So you must remember this point for the prelims. Another thing, we have the LGBTQ rights. LGBTQ rights. So we can see in the new foundation course, new foundation, the Naj Foundation versus MCT of Delhi, and reaffirmation in the Northeast Singh Johar versus Union of India case. The Supreme Court basically decriminalized the Article 376, which was pertaining to the homosexuality, and in that way it has preserved the one's right to choice to choose one partner, right? And it has also brought in the concept of equality for the transgenders who has been deprived of their rights for a long time. Another thing, we have the gender equality and religious reforms. So you can see that gender equality and religious reform, this has been held in the India Young Liars Association versus State of Kerala. So in that case, basically that is most popularly called Sabrimala case. In that case, basically you know that in the Sabrimala temple, the uh, young girls or women who are undergoing the periods, who are basically having the periods, they are not allowed to enter the temple. So it was a discriminatory practice, and the Supreme Court ensured that this must be done away with, and it was done away. And you can see that now the women can go for the darshan in the Sabrimala temple. So this is the a kind of ensuring the gender equality, because we have the right to freedom, right to freedom of movement. First thing, second thing, we have the right to freedom of religion, and that cannot be curtailed. Now, so this was basically protected here. Now coming to gender equality and marital reform. So we can see there was in 2018, if I'm not wrong. So in that time, yes, 2018 only, that Joseph Stein versus Union of India case, Supreme Court has decriminalized the 490 section 497. So what was that? Basically, it was discriminatory, because in the adultery cases, mostly the men were punished severely, but female were liberally excluded. So this was a biased law, and so Supreme Court has basically done away with this law, and has ensured that the adultery is treated as a civil crime, and it should be dealt with according to that one, not a criminal offense. So this is there. So we can see that in the various judgments, Supreme Court has ensured that the constitutional morality is upheld to the, either we can see the Keswanan Bharati case, which is saying about the protecting the basic structure of the constitution. If we talk about the gender equality, so we have the Joseph Sign case, where the section 497 is decriminalized. Another thing, we have the uh, Young Indian Young Layer Association case, most popularly called as uh, Sabrimala Temple case, where women were allowed to, even the younger women are allowed to enter the temple. Another thing, we have the right to privacy, that is case Puttaswamy case, where the right to privacy has been protected. And so all these things basically highlights that judiciary plays a crucial role in reinforcing the constitutional morality in the in India, right? Now, coming to the another aspect, that what are the challenges to the constitutional morality? So, as we know that we have so many talks in the constitution, but working on it is difficult. So we are not. That is the difficulty basically in ensuring the or enforcing the constitutional morality. First thing we can see is the political interference. So how it is basically difficulty, how it is making difficult to ensure the constitutional morality. So as we know that under under 7th schedule, that constitution has given power to the center and the states under the various lists, like list union list, state list, there concurrent list there. So they are expected to perform the power, exercise their power and functions based on those things. But the central government is having the is appointing governors in those states, and you can see the governors are, when comes to the consent assent for the bill. So the governor either perform the pocket veto or transferring to the uh, president, so reserving it the bill for the president assent. So this type of activities, in some way or other way, basically undermines the constitutional morality, because it is directly interfering with the functions of the democratic elected government. So such type of activities basically uh, becomes challenge to the constitutional, promoting the constitutional morality. Now coming to the state activism and restraint, judicial activism and restraint. So we can see that we know that separation of power. Separation of power basically a part of the constitution, because this is the provision which is already there in the constitution. It means that the three forms of the government, that various forms of government, that is legislature, executive, and judiciary, shall functions independently. But if you can see that we have the one example, like most popularly Visakha guidelines. What is that Visakha guidelines? That the Supreme Court has come up with the certain laws or certain guidelines, which has nothing but had force of law. and that basically undermines the other other forms of the other forms other that the other part of the constitution, other part of the government, that is legislature role, that you can see that parliament is meant to make the law, but if the judiciary start making the law, so what is the use of legislature? So this ideas comes into conflict, so it basically undermining the constitutional morality in the forms of separation of power, right? Now coming to the weak enforcement. So you can see that in the Vinith Narayan case in 1998, basically Supreme Court highlighted that institutional accountability and poor awareness of the rights erode the force of constitutional morality. So we can see that if the people are not aware of their rights, and so the authorities will definitely not perform their duties well, and that are basically uh, not adhering to the constitution's values. For instance, we have the district magistrates or any authority, political authority even. So they have been given certain powers, responsibilities toward the societies. But since suppose the people are not aware of those rights, so definitely they will not perform those duties, and in that way they are not doing justice to their job or duty. Another thing is that people are deprived of their rights. So we can see one other example most popularly. Actually, I was hearing one podcast that it was comparison about the New York local government system and the local governance in the India. So this was basically uh, what the commentators were saying, that in the New York, basically citizens as well as the local governance, that the citizens basically are more aware. They are knowing that what are the different functions which are expected to be performed by the various authorities, and that's why they are choosing the responsible governance, responsible government at the local level. And so instance for instance we can say that what for them what federal government meant for what the local government meant. But in India, if certain political parties comes and they ask votes for the, like you can see Delhi Municipal Corporation, so it is divided based on the political parties. The various political parties are there and they are making promises, but they are again driven by the very force of the communalism or backward politics. So all these things basically influencing the accountability terms. And the basically if the local government based on the people values are elected, so they are responsible, they will be responsible, but that kind of awareness is not there. He was basically commenting one thing. He stated one example that in Bangalore, basically that one person that he was asking to the some person, talking with some person, so he was saying that the local governance should be taken over by the Prime Minister Modi. So that the not that shows that the people are not aware of the function of the local government and the central government. So this difference, some way or other way, basically undermining the functioning of the local governance, and it is basically disrespect or non-adherence to the constitutional morality. Now, another thing is just societal resistance. So, as we know that in the constitution there are various provisions, and time and again there is certain conflict between the uh, there is certain conflict between the constitutional values, constitutional morality, and the social values. For instance, we have the child marriage, or some Hindu that personal laws are there. So personal laws are coming in conflict with the constitutional morality, which in the terms of the Inform Civil Code. So that cannot that makes it difficult to realize it basically. So in the another challenge is the social resistance. So now coming to the ways in which the public institutions can uphold constitutional morality. So what are the ways basically through which the constitutional morality can be upheld? The first thing is that extending the institution. How can we extend the institutions? So we have the various institutions like CBI, NIA, right? So these institutions must be made autonomous and operational in operational functioning and reducing the political interference. So that can be one of the way. Another thing is that enhance access to the justice. And for instance, we have the NALSA, that is NALSA, and we have the Lok Adalat. So in that way, the basically access to the justice has been ensured, is being ensured through the by the judiciary. And coming to the encouraging the ethical leadership, so we can see that the UPSC syllabus uh, is having the course of is having the one paper that is ethics. Also in the in the during the training, the civil servants are acknowledged with the various cultures, and so they are basically it means to develop the respect for the cultures. And also one can see that integrity, accountability, and is basically ensured through the civil code, that is that one that civil service code is there, right? So we have these things which basically ensures that leadership, that is bureaucracy, becomes accountable and integrity is upheld. Another and the last one is the promoting civic education. So that can be through the, like we have the books, NCRT books. So you can see that the very text, the form, the very initial part of the initial page of the book, basically some fundamental duties are written. So in a way it is promoting that constitutional morality. And another thing we can see that we have in most of the schools, certain pledge is taken, like with the people of India, having with the people of India, we are the brothers sisters, like something. So these things basically forms the constitutional morality. So we can, through this we can promote the constitutional morality in India. Now we have the question like discuss the significance of. So one thing I also want to note here, that what is the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar comment. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar basically, he stated that the constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment; it has to be cultivated. So before you go into the discussing the what are the how to cultivate, you can state this one, and then we can go for the how it can be cultivated. And so we have the one question here. You can see that discuss the significance of constitutional morality in strengthening the democratic governance and ensuring ethical functioning of constitutional institutions in India. So based on those above discussions, you can write these answers and share it to me. I have shared my Telegram channel. You can join there and send it to me. I can check and give the feedback. So that's all for today's discussion. And thank you so much. We'll continue with this discussion in the next videos. Uh, okay, thank you. If you like my channel, you can subscribe. If you like this video, you can subscribe my channel. That's all. Thank you.